He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to the Marlow Show. Happy Independence Day. I hope all of you have a great weekend planned, and you should, because we've got the big, beautiful bill has passed. I waited to do the show until the bill was officially passed, just to make sure, and then the vote came down 218 to 214. A big victory for President Trump, a big victory for the Republicans, and I'll say a big victory for Breitbart. We were champions of the bill, and so many people who I love in the conservative commentary and news class were more skeptical than we were. I thought this thing was pretty great. Here is Mike Johnson talking about it on the House floor as we get into Independence Day celebration mode.
President Trump is the creator and the champion of the America First agenda. We will deliver upon that today. We come a long way. We began this process really about 15 months ago. We had a sense, and we believed that we would have unified government. We would have this moment where the Republican Party would be given control of the White House and the Senate and the House. And we determined to ourselves that we would not waste that historic opportunity. We've had spirited debates. We've had months of deliberation. And now we are finally ready to fulfill our promise to the American people.
And that's what they're doing. And it is one of the issues that we get to take grand stands when we're out of power. But when you're in power, you got to govern. And govern is compromising. And this is the nature of the Congress. And I love the hardcores. My favorite people are the hardcores. They do the best interviews. But ultimately, when you have a narrow majority, and it was a very narrow majority, and a lot of you are in districts that narrowly went to Democrats, every single one of those districts makes it harder to pass a bill like this and have everyone be happy. But this bill is just loaded up with terrific stuff in it. It is just to mention all the things. Of course, it locks in those tax cuts, which would have been political suicide to let those expire. The taxes on tips and overtime, I won't say that there's none, but they're greatly reduced. More on that in a second. Medicaid for illegals is out. Standard deduction for seniors is up. Tons of new energy stuff, as I've been mentioning, how we're going to be creating new nuclear. We're going to be drilling. We're going to go offshore. We're going to go onshore. We're going to go wherever it is to get coal and natural gas and oil from the ground. We're going to get it into the American economy. It is going to help us thrive. Iron Dome is funded, ICE is funded, new deportations, new detention centers, and we're going to start working on some of those entitlements that I was kind of surprised, and this will come up a bit during the show today and later on, how everything I'm seeing from the public is that public does not like the idea of just pure welfare and charity being done for people who are able to work and are not willing to work. So able-bodied people have got to get back to work. It is Jobs Day, and I will break down that momentarily as well. So there's tons of news out there, but we've taken a ton of ammunition away from Democrats. We've given them some too, because some people will inevitably lose their health care, but it's not supposed to be people who should be on the program. It's supposed to be people who are taking advantage of the program or are illegal aliens, which is and are illegal aliens, I guess, and or illegal aliens. But people who should be working but aren't even trying to work, who are staying at home and just taking advantage of the rest of you, we don't really want those people on the programs. We want people trying in this country. Our government is not here to do charity. Our government is here to perhaps provide a minimal social safety net when people are down on their luck, but it's supposed to be down on your luck, not down on your effort. We're supposed to be trying. We're a country of people who are supposed to try to succeed. So much stuff that's going on. We're getting the child savings accounts that's going on. Companies are going to be able to write off more of their depreciation from the durable goods that they get. There's so much good stuff in this thing, and it will unfortunately take a while to get all the detail. I know that. I've noted that. That's not a great part of Washington. It's not a great part of the bill, but that part of the nature of having only a 4-vote margin here, considering 2 Republicans defected, the it is great stuff, and it locks in the President Trump's agenda. Another historic win, just adding to this unbelievable run he's been on with bringing peace to the Middle East with his Rwanda, Congo, the peace deal, which will effectually keep China at bay on their encroaching imperialism around the world, particularly in Africa. It is just one win after the next. The Supreme Court victory with the district courts rebuking the district courts from last week. The jobs data, which is much more positive than we had anticipated. More on that in a little bit. The guy is just absolutely en fuego, and not to mention my favorite part, where he had the opportunity to tell the people who are trying to escape alligator Alcatraz to run serpentine away from the alligators and the pythons if they want to save their lives. Brilliant stuff, beautiful stuff, and that's why they call it the big, brilliant, beautiful bill, adding an extra B in there. Yeah, not necessary. Anyway, great stuff. And I'll note that the two Republicans who did not support it, Thomas Massie, who I've kind of worn out of patience for Massie because he did not get that it's time to switch gears. The nature of being in the Congress is you have to. I like someone who is both gears, where they can take a grandstand if that moves the conversation in a positive way. But when it's time to hunker down and get something accomplished, he's not willing to do that. And he can have these deep-seated principles which are compelling to listen to but are ultimately meaningless when it comes to a practical matter. You could do a different job for that. Go get a talk show or something. Go write a column or a book. Or there's other places you can do that for a living. But in the Congress, ultimately, you have to be able to see a good bill when it comes down the pike and go for it, and maybe get your something in there that makes it extra beneficial and declare a W that way. But just taking the L on him, which is very strange. I've run out of patience for it, and I got to tell you, I've never been a super fan of his. As all of you know, that I think the media is broken, and for decades, big cable, legacy media has filtered information to hide the truth. America's trust in mass media is at a historic low. But thanks to podcasts and new media like Breitbart, the truth can break through. And that's what we're trying to do in this show every day, providing voices and views that legacy outlets block from the air. Even some of your favorites are blocking people like me from the air. 100 million Americans are listening to podcasts every week, according to Edison Research, and 70% listen to podcasts on their mobile devices. It is the new world. And you see, I told you that I was looking at it. We're our best rating ever on Apple this week. We're ahead of Gavin Newsom's podcast, Governor of California, highly publicized. We're breaking through, and big cable still has one major way to control information: it's access. They do this by limiting access to something called spectrum. It's an invisible airwaves that power affordable wireless internet, and by forcing you into their bundles, keeping independent media out of reach. Leaders in Congress, like Senator Cruz, of course, are working to expand spectrum access for more Americans. President Trump expanded access to spectrum in his first term and has endorsed a plan to reduce our deficit by billions of dollars now by doing it again. And conservative leaders like Stephen Moore have argued it's a perfect fit for president's economic plan. And that's why the president has endorsed this plan. So this is it. It's spectrum. And that's why we've got our friends at endthecableopoly.org who are trying to take on the legacy media and make more spectrum available. You can check out what they got, endthecableopoly.org, to learn more about how your congressman and how President Trump can make more spectrum available. Check them out. The other Republican who was against the bill is Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick. And he's a Republican from Pennsylvania. He's another guy that I was not super on my radar, but I boned up on our prior coverage of him at Breitbart over the years. And he was co-chairman, I don't know if this thing still exists, of the establishment-minded Problem Solvers Caucus. Just so pompous. I just hate the smug and the pompous. Just so irritating. And he's pushed amnesty for farm workers and the agriculture industry in the past. One of the things that he's been known to do. And he also was part of a group that did the Defending Borders, Defending Democracies Act, which is a pro-migration act that a lot of Republicans and some moderate Democrats got behind, including Congressman Don Bacon, who people thought might vote no on this bill, but ended up voting yes. So he seems like a pro-amnesty moderate Republican and has backed lots of funding for Ukraine. So keep an eye on this guy, because if he didn't vote for this bill, Trump's going to say something eventually. and maybe he'll get primaried, or maybe he'll end up going, the Kinzinger route and just goes and does the Slava Ukraini routine on X, the social media app, as well as CNN, stuff like that. So let's see how that goes. But he was part of a group that was encouraging Democrats to push a green card giveaway for Fortune 500 companies. Just, no thanks, not my type of guy. But he wasn't on my radar at all, and now he is. So that's the whole thing. Is I'm editor-in-chief of Breitbart. If you're a pro-amnesty Republican, I'm not a great guy. You don't want to be on my radar. You don't. And now he is. So now we got a new character, Brian Fitzpatrick. Welcome, Brian. Welcome to the Breitbart universe of villains. The other things interesting that came up during the scope of the bill is Hakeem Jeffries did this thing now that's just so common, where he did this sort of virtual, it's like a literal filibuster, even though it was never going to really work. He said a record long House floor speech, and needless to say, it accomplished nothing. If anything, it may have actually widened the margin. There may have been more Republicans who may have seen him do this and understood that I can't support this guy. I don't want to vote with this guy, which is how Thomas Massie voted. And it's how Brian Fitzpatrick voted. That's how these guys voted. They voted in a way specifically to side with Hakeem Jeffries over Mike Johnson. And I will shout out Johnson here, because I've been following Johnson, and I did not think it was a good move getting rid of Speaker McCarthy. I think we lost a lot of time on that. And I think that Speaker McCarthy, who I have no relationship with at all, and was part of that Young Guns caucus with Eric Cantor and Paul Ryan, which was, the worst elements of our Congress. And we worked hard to defeat the other two guys. McCarthy seemed to, in the spirit of Marco Rubio, I thought he was really coming around to the MAGA stuff. So I didn't get quite the level of hatred that some of my peers in conservative news had for him. But overall, the Johnson is doing well here, because he's got that nature to him where it reminds me of Scott Bessent. You know how I was talking about how Scott Bessent has this, I figured out he was a teacher based off of how he talks to idiots. Mike Johnson's got that too. You get the impression that he's very adroit at being able to talk to dumb people who think they are smart in an effective way. And that is a lot of the job with Congress. And we've seen it time and time again that there are people on both sides of the aisle, particularly Democrats, but both sides of the aisle, who are not that bright, but somehow through sheer willpower, perhaps charisma, perhaps just the ability to take a punch, got over the finish line and into the Congress. And Johnson needs to make sure that all those people, all those cats are herded, and he's got to get skill for it. So shout out to him, credit where it's due. Great job keeping the coalition together. And when you hear him talk, you just get that impression that he is very skilled at talking to dumb people who think they're smart. And that is, mark that down. That's a big skill for a Speaker of the House. We need that sort of thing. And he's got it. So, but I want to play for you some of Hakeem Jeffries' record-setting speech, because I want you all to see what sort of an intellectual heavyweight we are going up against in our movement. Check this out.
Speaker, that's not what this country should be all about. Manu wasn't the only one. The only American citizen who's been targeted by the deportation machine, a deportation machine.
Could you imagine if I came into the show like this? And that's not what this bill is all about. And producer Misty wasn't the only one a part. How long would it take for you to get bored and to just say, I'm going to go listen to something else? There's too much competition out there. It is interesting when I can't believe he's making his colleagues sit through this. These people got to be so bored. I think one guy's literally checking his watch, where I have freeze framed it. It looks like a couple of watch checkers, the way I freeze framed it here on the screen. Who buys this shtick anymore? Did anyone ever buy it? I'm just so unaccustomed to this. I would want to ask Hakeem Jeffries about this if he ever submitted to an interview for me. And maybe one day they'll change course and they'll start trying to reach out to people like me. I doubt it, but it'd be nice if he did. And I would ask him about this speech pattern and does he really think it's effective when everyone is busy? Maybe, I don't know. I get a little precious with my time, but there's a lot I like to do during the day. I got a whole plan. I've got a bunch of kids I want to play with. I got a bunch of work I want to get done. I'll never get through all my work I have to do. And I like to exercise when I'm done with doing all the work and sometimes before the work. And and then maybe cook for my family if I get all that done. Like, I've got stuff to do. And when he's saying 13 words in a 45-second period, it's so disrespectful of people, but he thinks this is dramatic.
That will be unleashed on steroids by this one big ugly bill. We know that, in fact, is the case. That's not hyperbole.
It's not 2024. We've got to retire the on steroids line, okay? We got to do it. Hey, I'm adding that to my list, Missy. You got to write it down. So we're retiring welcome in. Welcome in's got to go. And on steroids has got to go. We got it. And if I ever do it, I want to get angry emails and comments at aloha@alexmarlow.com, please. Okay. We got more at Jeffries. Let's see.
Let me speak directly to Gwendolyn from Arizona. Her representative may not be fighting on your behalf. As House Democrats, we're here to say to you, we agree. Medicaid matters and it must be preserved. It must be preserved.
So this is where I feel like any moderate Republican might get turned off because they're not taking away Medicaid. It's very clear in the bill. They're trying to get people off of it who are not qualified, who should not be on it to begin with. We're talking illegal aliens and people who are not actively trying to seek work and are able-bodied. So picture the proverbial young man in his 30s in his parents' basement playing video games and scrolling on social media and not trying to work. Like, should that person get government-funded healthcare? Healthcare costs in this country are very high. We're spending a lot more money. I think we spend more than groceries now, which, again, that was something that Obama and the Democrats were supposed to fix. We didn't fix it. So we're trying to start figuring this stuff out, and we have to be willing to do a little bit. This is highly irritating about the tribal and partisan nature of our politics right now, which I, of course, blame the Democrats. I know they would blame us, but I blame the Democrats 100% on this because we've adopted a lot of their policies, and then they are now no longer support the policies that they've held because we do them. You know, tariffs, we're in too many foreign wars. We shouldn't be sending unlimited amounts of foreign aid overseas. We want to fight for the working class. You know, we want manufacturing jobs to return, not get outsourced. All this stuff that Democrats used to talk about, we do it now. And they now disagree just because we hold those positions. Specifically, Trump holds those positions. But there was never any discussion of Medicaid going away. That's not the point. We want to get the waste, fraud, and abuse out of it. And can't we agree on that? Or is it literally where we can't agree on anything? The world would be more interesting if there was nuance allowed, if there was debate allowed. It is not interesting when everything is black and white all the time.
Because Medicaid matters to millions of people all across this great country, to children, to seniors, to people with disabilities, to women, to families, to people in every corner of the United States of America. Yes, Gwendolyn, Medicaid matters. And if your representative won't fight for it, we will.
It's just dishonest, and I just hope enough people see it. I do think they see it, but I just hope people see it. All right, I got one more because you gotta understand that this is the leader of their party aside from Zohran Mamdani. I don't think we have any Zohran clips, but I gotta say I think I busted Zohran pretty bad. Misty, you weren't here yesterday, but I got him on the Zoom teeth whitening. So he's a communist, but he is getting the really expensive teeth whitening procedure because I will tell you, full disclosure to the audience, I've had the teeth whitening done. I haven't gotten like veneers or nothing like that. I wouldn't do that. But I've gotten spruced up. I'm on camera enough, and they're not cheap. I don't like doing it. And his teeth are considerably wider than mine. So he's either genetically blessed or I busted that guy. The communist who gets high-end cosmetic dentistry. It's so inauthentic. It's such baloney. All right. Let's see. One more, Jeffries. Let's do it.
I feel the obligation, Mr. Speaker, to stand on this House floor and take my sweet time to tell the stories of the American people. And that's exactly what I intend to do. Take my sweet time on behalf of the American people, on behalf of their health care, on behalf of their Medicaid, on behalf of their nutritional assistance, on behalf of veterans, on behalf of farmers, on behalf of children, on behalf of seniors, on behalf of people with disabilities, on behalf of small businesses, on behalf of every single American. I'm on this House floor after 6 a.m. and I'm planning to take my sweet time.
And he's planning to fill up a diaper, probably, because that's what you got to do, right? If you're going to set the record for longest speech, you got to get a diaper going. It's the, I don't know. I don't envy that. Does that approach where you just do platitudes for hours, does that convince anyone? And that cadence where if you've given a speech and you can break into that sort of a rhythm in the room, it can be effective. But watching from home, which is how the vast majority of people consume this content, it just seems just like pure platitudes. And I just don't see a single person that's going to be convinced by that. But maybe I should do this as an experiment. I got a big speech coming up next weekend. I'm going to the Turning Point Student Action Summit, which is one of their two biggest events of the year. So all the big speech will be thousands of people there and way more than that watching at home. And I got to break into a thing about, I got to have the America First agenda is for the black people and for the white people and for the poor people and the rich people and the gay people and the straight people and the questioning people and the people who like to read newspapers and the people who are dog people and the cat people and the people who call their plants their babies and the people who have had two moms and the people who have two dads. Like, is that how we're supposed to do stuff? Does that work at this day and age? In the authentic moment, I don't think it works. Hakeem Jeffries previously tweeted, this is 2021, the filibuster is a Jim Crow era relic that has been used to stop progress for decades. And he's out there, he's just going to platitude it up forever. Roger Marshall, who is a senator from Kansas and a doctor, has said that they're going to be providing $50 billion for a rural health fund in the budget reconciliation that will give rural hospitals the way he describes, a lifeline to survive. So basically, if Medicaid cuts, because we're cutting the fraud, somehow does affect these rural hospitals, you would like to think that some people who have rural Trump voters who could potentially lose their Medicaid, that you'd like to think people thought of that, especially in a bill that is going to expand the debt. It is a very expensive bill. It's a really expensive bill. So we need to take advantage of the moment, how they're so lost. They have such unpersuasive arguments and unpersuasive people. Here's the other face of their party behind Jeffries and Mamdani with the toilet bowl teeth. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a waitress.
Bill, on this point of tax on tips, as one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that text, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their health care extensions.
Well, we're kicking them off only if they shouldn't be on there to begin with, based off of the terms of the deals. There's too much fraud. So we're getting the people who are on there for fraud. But it's do any of you believe that this bill is going to raise taxes on poor people? Do you think that we're finally making headway with poor people as a Republican Party for the first time in my lifetime, and we're just going to mess it up by raising their taxes? Do any of you think that's true? None of you actually think that's true, because it's not true and it's not logical. So there's no reason to do that, because you couldn't get much anyway. All you do is, this is the reality that people don't want to be true, but it is true. You buy votes. That's how you get stuff. People vote based off of what they think will benefit them and their families personally. So if we are trying to raise the tax rates marginally for poor people, And we think that out of principle, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe people should have more skin in the game. Well, those people aren't going to agree with you, and they're going to not vote for you next time because they're going to vote to keep their taxes lower. The same way I would vote for anyone who wants to keep my taxes lower. And I'm going to probably vote for the party that keeps my taxes lower. And that's the thing that is unspoken mostly, but is true. So you're not going to be able to get that much tax revenue out of people who earn $50,000 a year. So we're not going to be raising their taxes. It doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you, the capping of the no tax on tips at 25 grand does make a lot of sense because economically, no tax on tip doesn't really, it's not a good economic principle. It's a feel good principle that Trump campaigned on. I love the promises made, promises kept idea. But when I worked as a waiter, I would make minimum wage. And there were nights where I could make $200, $300, maybe even $400 a night from tips. So for 5 hours of work. So if I'm making $8, $9, $10, $11 an hour on base pay, and I'm getting $35 an hour from tips, then why am I not taxed at all on the $35 an hour? Well, essentially, we are trying to cater to a constituency that is not a high-class job. This is a working-class job. And we're giving them a tax break, which is great because I'm pro tax breaks all the time. But we're trying to appeal this constituency, but we're saying that there's a limit to it. You get the first 25K covered. That's on us. And then after that, you should declare and you should pay some taxes on that. That sounds great. It's like a great compromise. And so instead of her, a waitress, saying this is a great idea, she says, no, it's not a great idea. Why? Because it doesn't help me position myself in the political landscape. So I doubt that her authenticity as a Queens, Bronx girl, even though she went to a private school, I just don't know if that's going to hold on long enough for her to have deep longevity. Maybe it will, but I don't know. She makes a lot of mistakes.
So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math. Is that worth it to you? Losing all your health care, not able to feed your babies, not being able to put a diaper on their bottom in exchange for what? This bill is a deal with the devil.
Look, I'm pro babies all the time. I'm a natalist, if you will. I go around recommending to people to have families, to have children, to make as many children as you can afford, and then have as many children as you can afford, and then one more for good luck. That's my rule. And then if you can't have children biologically, adopt children. That is a huge part of what I evangelize publicly. But I will say, if you cannot afford diapers, then you're not a great candidate to have kids. So if you need the government to buy you diapers, then you really should be being more careful with your sexual practices. That is true. So, and you should consider that if you cannot afford diapers, whether or not you could find a loving family that can afford diapers that could take care of your kid for you, known as adoption. So it's just a consideration. So I know that that's not politically as a savvy thing to say, and I'm not a politician, which is nice. But there is a limit where if you feel like you cannot afford diapers, you should probably not be procreating. Make sense? It's about the only instance where I can say don't procreate. Well, I'm not saying you wait until you have a 5-bedroom house to have a family. No, you can't do that. Like, it doesn't work. The world doesn't work that way. But you can't wait until you can afford diapers. I think that's good.
It explodes our national debt. It militarizes our entire economy, and it strips.
It militarizes our entire economy. This is where there's too much content that I would normally, there was a time in my life where I would stop everything and I would just assign my newsroom. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the bill militarizes the entire economy. I think I got to do it. I think we got to assign that one. That is too much. It militarizes the whole economy. Trump is the first Republican that thinks maybe the military is inefficient. And we're going to expand it in some ways, but we're going to tighten it in other ways. So I just don't even know what she's talking about. Why am I even trying to make sense of it? There's no point. It's just a show. She's just doing her showboat routine, just like every other Democrat. They're not reasonable. They're not trying to work with us at all.
Away healthcare and basic dignity of the American people for what? To give Elon Musk a tax break and billionaires the greedy taking of our nation. We cannot stand for it, and we will not support it. You should be ashamed.
You should be ashamed too? We got to be ashamed? Man, she's so convincing. Misty, great poll. That was fantastic. Good stuff. All right. The jobs data came in, really fascinating stuff. This is the subject of my Breitbart Confidential show. I have John Carney on today. Those of you who are Breitbart Fight Club members, you can get his whole take on this, which is, of course, will be the best in the world. But recall yesterday, I raised a flag that the ADP jobs report showed private payrolls unexpectedly shrinking 33,000 jobs in June. I always give the caveat that ADP, which is the biggest private payroll processor in the country and has access to more data than anyone but the government, has been consistently wrong, and not wrong, but they're not tracking the most relevant stuff, as it turns out. That there's too many limitations on what they have access to, and it is just not the macro trends. The macro trends are incredibly positive for America. We had just an amazing jobs report come out relative to what was assumed. It was assumed based on the ADP reports we would be seeing a not good number, but instead we saw the golden age coming back with 147,000 new jobs, much higher than expected, and the unemployment rate actually declining. The downside is that probably means Powell won't lower rates over the summer, so we'll probably have to wait for the fall for that, which is I can't wait. I can't wait for that. I'm ready. I'm ready for the interest rates to come down, and I think that's the right move. I get into this with Carney, but overall, not only are we seeing jobs growing, not only are we seeing unemployment rate going down, not only are we seeing it exceed expectations consistently, we're seeing foreign-born employment plunging and American-born employment soaring. And I say this as I want to be crystal here, because I don't wish ill on any immigrants that are here, and illegal immigrants, if they're losing their jobs, that's a great thing because they can maybe self-deport, because many of them are here for purely economic reasons as economic migrants. But overall, the essence of America First is we take care of Americans first, not only, but first. And so when you're seeing that there are jobs being created and the vast majority of those jobs are going to Americans and not people we were importing to be part of our economy, people who are here as a part of not just our economy, but our culture, our national identity, Americans, that is when we're at our best. That is how the golden age happens, because that could be we could reignite patriotism in this country. I had meant to ask for a clip, and I spaced out on this, which is really unfortunate. But I was watching a clip of Elie Mystal. Elie Mystal is a attorney, and he's a commentator on left-wing news, particularly MSNBC. And he was saying that, quote, "Our country is the bad guy on the world stage. The world needs to stand against America. Sanction us." And this is why I've been saying for a decade, and it used to jar people when I would say it, and now everyone gets it, the left hates this country. They don't like our system of government. They don't like law and order. They want chaos. They don't want us to have a border. They don't like democracy, as they've continued to subvert over and over again and announce they're the stewards of democracy. They don't like this country. They don't like what America stands for. They don't like our history. They don't like our founders. And we can have a monopoly, we on the right can have a monopoly in patriotism, because in general, people want to believe they came from a good place. And I think there's a lot more people rooting for America than rooting against America. And they are ceding that battlefield. They're acting like this is a terrible place where all of us are racist. We're run by fascists. That's how they talk about us. And all we're trying to do is bomb innocent people around the world. If they want to keep having that posture, and we can say, hey, look at this, we create a lot of jobs for Americans. It is not just righteous. It is, I think, politically the future for longevity for the conservative movement and the populist America First movement in this country. So great stuff, and congrats to everyone around. Just the winning does not stop. All right, other items worth mentioning today. We got a new story, Breitbart News. Zero tolerance. EPA puts rogue minority staffers on leave, launches investigation into efforts to upend the will of the American people. Lee Zeldin continues to be one of the standouts of Trump's cabinet, even though he's an administrator. Does that technically make him cabinet? I should know that. But anyway, Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin saying that rogue minority of staffers are on leave now after an investigation that they're looking into subvert the Trump agenda from the inside. And a minority is in not people of color. Minority is in not popular. That'd be a big thing. I'm kind of surprised the EPA exists. Zeldin is a tough-nosed guy. Definitely someone who you could see on a ticket somewhere down the road, perhaps as he could be a real badass vice president. I could see that. He can kind of convince me on the president part because we got such a deep bench, but definitely in the vice president part for sure. You could see that happening just because I just love that he's tough nose, and you got to be a hard nose to get through an agency like the EPA, which think about who would work at the EPA prior to Donald Trump. The type of people who love the environment and want to work for the government. He is coming in with probably hated by everyone in the room. And they're doing good stuff there. They're helping with the LA cleanup. There's a lot of potential for that. And we got a great guy with Zeldin in charge, and he's cleaning up all the riffraff. Love that. All right. I think, Abrego Garcia says he was beaten and subjected to psychological torture in an El Salvador jail. And I bring this up. I haven't mentioned breaking the law today. It is because I don't want to dwell on it too much because, again, it'll be out for in a month. You'll be able to actually get your hands on the text of it. But part of why I wrote Breaking the Law is to understand how the left has weaponized the judicial system for politics. And it's not just against Donald Trump. It's on other stuff too. But I was reading, this is the lead headline. This is the first line from the Associated Press. Kilmar Abrego Garcia said he suffered severe beatings, severe sleep deprivation, and psychological torture in the notorious El Salvador prison the Trump administration had deported him to in March, according to court documents filed Wednesday. So here's what we're noticing here. It is not the presumed human smuggler, Abrego Garcia. It's not the accused wife beater, Abrego Garcia. He's just a normal guy, a Maryland dad. So they don't include any of the obvious negative stuff about the guy. And then they say that this is according to court documents. So it's not that he just volunteered it in a super articulate interview at a press conference that he held where he made a really persuasive case that he's a great guy. No, this is filtered through attorneys. So attorneys that are no doubt paid for by the institutional left, by the lawfare superstructure that I profile in Breaking the Law. And they use these guys and they figure out that we can make this a political weapon, not just against Trump, but against the deal that we've got with Nayib Bukele, where we're essentially subsidizing his CCOP prison, his hardcore prison, and in exchange for him taking some of our illegal migrant criminals and putting them in there. So this is full-on warfare on trying to secure our border and to try to restore sanity in our immigration system. So I would love to see the evidence that this is happening. But the problem is that we've got a lawfare machine that is rooting for this illegal alien criminal and rooting against America and our ability to try to deport illegal aliens from this country, particularly violent criminal illegal aliens. So just know what that's about. And maybe this is the one instance where they're being literal, but I doubt it. And just know that there is all of these attorneys who are working, no doubt, pro bono, unless they are funded by some sort of billionaire type Reid Hoffman or George Soros type funding this sort of thing, then that is why Abrego Garcia remains in the news. They know this was a political mistake on their point. Trump's policies continue to get more popular. And it is noteworthy that right now that the left is still trying to champion this presumed illegal alien smuggler and wife beater because they will not take a loss. They don't take losses anymore. They won't do it. This is a moment of deep economic chaos. No one knows really what the future is for the big, beautiful bill. No one knows what the future is for tariffs, China tariffs. So many of America's biggest companies are seeing wild swings that are just completely inconsistent. The hedge against the wild times we're in is gold. And if you had bought gold, when I started to recommend my friends at Priority Gold, you would have made a ton of money. I'm just looking at the data right now. We're talking about year to date, gold is up 25.4% as I'm doing this recording over the last year. Gold's up 40%. That is a wild return. That's an absolutely wild return. I was just doing TV with Steve Moore, and he was talking about the price of gold and how it's really, really high right now. And it crested over $3,400 an ounce just this week. I've got the best partners in the game at Priority Gold. If you text the word freedom to the number 24999, or you go to prioritygold.com/freedom, they will get you a free gold and silver guide. They will help personalize a package for you so that you can start buying your own gold. You can do a gold 401k, a gold IRA. They have so many options for you, and they will help you. They will help you. They will get on the line with you and tailor a strategy just for you. But you got to go to prioritygold.com/freedom or text the word freedom to 24999. These are great partners to be in business with at a moment where gold is red hot. It's gold hot right now. All right, check them out, prioritygold.com/freedom. All right. Other items I want to get to today. Diddy fans are pouring baby oil on themselves in celebration of the verdict, which was he guilty on 2 counts, but not guilty on the more severe counts. It's not RICO. It's a freako. And there's people partying outside pouring Astroglide baby oil all over themselves. I told you those Astroglide stocks, they're rising. I was making this joke yesterday, and it totally turned out to be true. We came on to record the show right as Diddy was getting released, and then all the stuff that I was joking about during the show yesterday all turned out to be true, just people partying the freak offs. And I'll tell you, Diddy's going to be on the playlist tonight, the Marlow household. I got them thawing the filet mignons tonight. I'm thinking about doing the potatoes, and Diddy will get some spins. He's not a good guy. It seemed like they overdoing it. The media just can't help themselves. They just overdo everything. So that's the whole thing, is that Diddy's he's criminal, and I'm sure he's a bad guy, and I don't like the prostitution stuff and the freak offs and the all that's weird, but they treated him like he was, they treat him like he did 9/11. So it seemed like it was too much. More Hollywood news, not as fun. Michael Madsen passed away. He was in the movies Kill Bill and Reservoir Dogs. Those of you who know I'm a massive Quentin Tarantino fan, and he's had some very memorable roles in Tarantino films. One of those brutal scenes in movie history in Reservoir Dogs with it involves a ear. We'll just say that. But it did introduce me to the song Stuck in the Middle by the Steeler Wheelers, which gets a ton of plays, ton of spins in the Marlow household. But just some great roles, some great acting. Kill Bill, another underrated Tarantino movie, 2 movies really. He's in that, does a great job. And always sad when people go, 67 feels young these days. And he had a really tragic end to his life. I think he had a child who committed suicide and broke up his marriage. But I will take the opportunity to say rest in peace, and you can check out either of those movies, but only if you're a grown-up. Last one on my list today. This is from The Smoking Gun, a website I've been reading since, 25 years probably. A lottery winner of Powerball, $167.3 million, has a dizzying criminal record. This is unbelievable. Let's see, what is this guy's name? James Farthing has spent most of his time residing in Florida and Kentucky and has had something like 25 criminal convictions, and he won the Powerball for 167.3. I hate the lotteries. They're predatory. All they do is they prey on people who can't do math, who are poor, and try to take a shot, and they waste a few dollars they don't really have to lose to fund the government some more. And then there's this promise of you could be a criminal and then you could get 167 million. But the lotteries it's the worst, least efficient gambling you can do. And it is a culturally just a terrible sign. And they really should go away. They really should. I mean, people are free to do what they want with their money, but gambling are highly addictive. And obviously people who are paying into the system for a terrible return on investment are the weakest and most vulnerable among us. So really one of those, that's a hobby horse of mine, being anti-lottery. Lotteries are terrible and they should stop. But maybe get some attention to it now that we've got the criminal I'm looking at the mugshots here. What do we got? It looks like 40 plus mugshots, and it's just great job by Smoking Gun. Nice catch there. The 25. He's been in 25 different prisons, so he's probably been more than 25 lockups. How do you do that? What a life of crime. And you know what? With Zohran Mamdani and Hassan Piker taking over New York City, then maybe he'll get an extra $500,000 for being a criminal, because they're going to pay the criminals. They just stop committing crimes. I would love to see it if he does another crime. That's what we got to track. We got to track. We got to track whether or not the criminal who got $167 million from the lottery, James Farthing, whether or not he is able to live a nicer, more peaceful life, or whether or not he does commit another crime. I would love to see if he retires from his life of crime. I'm interested. All right. That will be today's broadcast. The Alex Marlow Show, the best week of ever on the show from the vaunted Apple podcast charts. So I appreciate all of you telling 10,000 friends and family members about us. We are going to be growing and thriving, and really looking forward to a just epic summer that's couldn't be off to a better start. And it is my pleasure to thank producer Misty and all of you in the Breitbart family for checking out all the things we do. And I will talk to you after, hopefully, a terrific Independence Day.